Okay, we're live. Good morning, everyone. Good evening, and wherever you are in this awesome planet, we have another special guest. We're very honored to have him, and it's very hard to introduce him because there's such a long list of how we will introduce him and all the things that he has done. So let's just hear the awesome story of former Ambassador Virgilio A. Reyes Jr. I have to say, I wish we were related, but I'm not. And he will start telling us about his story, his book, his travels, the people he has met, and most importantly, the food that he has enjoyed in his travels, I guess, all over the world. Welcome, former Ambassador Virgil Reyes.
Well, thank you very much, Nancy, and to the host as well of Awesome Planet. I guess it says volumes that now we can communicate all over the world,
Yeah.
literally, through this medium.
Mhm.
And who would have thought when I began my career, which is like 35 years ago, that we could do this so easily? And it comes on the heels of what was really actually a global catastrophe with a pandemic, but
Mhm.
which has turned out to be, in the long run, also somewhat better because now we know that we can work at home, we can communicate with people all over the world. It's become a smaller planet, although no less
Yeah, that's
complicated.
true. When you were posted, was there already internet, or how did you how was the communications between your posting and the Philippines and whatever else?
Well, I think you're dating me
Me
because
too. Me too.
if you must know, I graduated from college way back in 1969. And
Okay.
since you asked from the Ateneo de Manila University, I proceeded to further studies in other institutions, including um, the University of the Philippines, the University of Paris, the Vienna Diplomatic Academy,
Mm-hmm.
etc.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I guess you might also be familiar, although probably you're about 10 years younger than I.
Not really.
Uh,
You can date me.
we had the typewriter, uh,
Yeah.
fax machines, telephones. Uh,
Pager, the pager.
yes, but I entered the Foreign Service in 1979.
Was that your desired career from the start?
No, actually, when I graduated from college, which was at a very young age, at age 19,
Hmm.
my real ambition was just to be able to go to Europe, and maybe further my studies there. And as it turned out, since I left in July of 1972, martial law was declared in September, if you
Yeah.
might remember. So my parents told me that if I wished to pursue my studies abroad, I should stay a while where I was, which was in Germany. And because I think it was rather difficult to travel outside of the country at that time. You needed some special permits.
Yeah.
So instead of that just 1 year in Germany, I ended up with five, finishing at the Diplomatic Academy of Vienna
Mhm.
and doing further studies in France and in Spain as well.
So you speak those three languages, Spanish, German, and French, and Italian, I guess.
Yes, from my last post, Italian, and I did study a bit of Russian at the United Nations when I was assigned to New York from 1983 to 1991.
Is that a requirement in being an ambassador or diplomat?
Naturally,
A
it's
linguist?
to your advantage if you know the language, history, and culture of whichever country you're assigned to.
Mm.
Um, in the United Nations, naturally, uh, it's an international organization, so there are the five basic languages that are of common currency there, but of course it's located in the United States, so English is, I guess, more the current language that one uses in the corridors. Although, as you know, French, Chinese, Arabic, and Russian are also just as important languages. But in my case, what had happened was that before I entered the Foreign Service, I'd had the fortune of studying in places which required me to know French, English, and German, which is the Diplomatic Academy of Vienna.
Okay.
So, and then for any diplomat, it's best
Mhm.
if he knows the language, he or she knows the language of
Yeah.
wherever he or she is assigned.
But before we go again to into your posting career, let's go back to you said you finished in Ateneo, and then what province are you from? A little about your culinary DNA before we touch on your international palate.
Well, my goodness.
Why?
Well, I come from Manila because my mother's family is from San Nicolas and Binondo, and on the other hand, my father's family is really Cavite and Batangas. So you might say that, well, in addition, my mother's father was from Rojas City or Capiz. So
Mm,
I do have some Visayan ancestry as well. But further back, if I wish to dig back further to my DNA, I think there are traces of French and Spanish and
mm.
Chinese, of course, in addition to the basic Malay. So just as the Philippines could be described as having a hybrid or a very interesting background, I guess, like most Filipinos, I'm a mixture of all
Uh-huh.
of these influences. And maybe this played a role in terms of taste as well,
Mm.
because on the one hand, we had, I guess, somewhat sophisticated influences from my grandmother, who had French blood and had recipes from her own mother. Whereas
Mm.
on my father's side, we had some Spanish and Chinese blood as well. And I
Okay.
guess we had very good basic, well, Tagalog meals, which had, a strong influences from, I guess, older Tagalog culture, you would say.
And so that makes your palate predominantly what?
Filipino.
Spanish? No, I was
Filipino, because
just
we are a
is the
mestizo nation, no? In other words, because of 333 years of Spanish culture
Mhm.
intermixed with Chinese and then various other foreign influences. I guess that makes us open to many influences and cultures. If you will note, if you go to BGC or to Makati, I think we have some of the most varied restaurants that you know can be had in Southeast Asia,
Yep.
whereas the others are just catching us up with us, so to speak. If we do not have, let us just say, the pure culture of Thailand, no, or of Indonesia. On the other hand, we have many other influences that make us also very interesting, I guess.
Actually, my balikbayan friends from Houston are so surprised at the varied cuisines that they have. They they could not even eat their way through all, but they said, "Wow, there's so much excitement in the food scene here in the Philippines." Anyway,
Not to
okay. So,
mention that we also have very interesting uh, places in the Philippines, such as Pampanga, which is certainly a culinary hotspot, or Iloilo, for example. and many other regions, such as the Bicol region, are awakening up to their culinary heritage. So they're developing their own cookbooks and writing down everything that their grandmothers wrote. I think I can mention, for example, Feliz Prudente Santa Maria, who is a distant relative of mine, by the way.
Oh.
And then we have Guillermo Ige Ramos, who's from Cavite City, and I happen to also come from Maragondon, Cavite.
Mm-hmm.
Our ancestral home was actually the so-called Bonifacio trial house because it was where that infamous trial of
Mm.
Bonifacio was held, although fortunately not with any of my ancestors present there.
Okay. All
You
right.
can still visit that home
I
in.
know, yeah. We heard about that. Ige was telling us about that particular house. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So how much time did you spend in the Philippines? Because I know you were in New York, in Italy, and in other countries.
Well, my career spanned 35 years,
Yes.
and out of which I had time at the Philippine Mission to the United Nations, and then I was in Myanmar, where I
Really?
met Aung San Suu Kyi, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Then in Mexico, which coincided with the centennial of
Mm-hmm.
Philippine Revolution and Independence,
Okay.
where we were glad to host President Ramos on state visit. Then I was also in Chile, where which is down south. Much, these are two opposite poles of Hispanic or Latin culture because you have the north with Mexico, and then the south of the Latin America, which is Chile. Um, and by the way, I would say that Chile, Argentina, and Uruguay have somewhat more European cultures than the North or the um, Southern America, such as Mexico and Peru, which have very vital pre-Hispanic cultures.
So these are all postings.
Yes, but not. But if I can continue, I was also appointed to South Africa,
Hmm.
where I was responsible for 9 countries which surround South Africa. And my final posting was in Italy, which I
Yeah.
enjoyed very much as
What
well.
year was that?
My last posting was from 2011 to 2014, at which point I retired. So I've been retired for about 8 years now, a period in which I've used to travel, to write articles, and to
Like the
do
book.
some projects in cultural heritage.
Okay. So yeah, well, speaking of Italy, how long were you there and how did you what did
I was there for 3 years, and Italy happens to have some of the largest Filipino communities in Europe, about 200,000, which equals that number which we have in Britain. Britain is logical because we speak English. On
yes.
the other hand, we're attached to Italy because of the Latin culture and also because of the Catholic religion.
And
So Filipinos
most
adjust very well to
yes,
yes to both countries. Yes.
are most of them nurses? Are they in the medical field just like
No, I would not say so. Actually, the professions of Filipinos in Italy would be quite varied as well. I mean, I know at least some in the medical profession, as you mentioned, but also I know architects, artists. One of the best florists that we know in Italy is Efren Dordas.
really?
So they're not only in the caring professions, but also
Yes.
in other careers that also sort of are vital for the
Yeah.
economy of Italy.
Also, of course, the domestic helpers, because I found out that because of the big population of Filipinos in Italy, they even have sari-sari stores, little stores where you can buy the comics and all these Filipino favorites.
Well, I guess Filipinos have learned to be enterprising abroad and to also service their own fellow citizens,
Mm.
But I would just not classify them simply as domestic helpers, but generally they're caregivers.
Oh,
People who are very important in a country that has somewhat of an aging population,
yes.
and I think this was most important, especially during the pandemic. You know, I think we discussed earlier too that Italy is also a major point in cruises, for
Yes.
example, and there were a lot of mariners present when this famous cruise ship sank
Let me be the
in
one
the
to say that.
north.
Okay, audience, um, our ambassador is not just into the diplomacy, but he was able to save 296 Filipinos in that cruise ship that got marooned. Now, how did that happen? How did you do that?
Well, I would just like to correct that verb because certainly I didn't do it on my own. I mean, this is a result of cooperation, not only with the Filipino community, but with the Italian authorities who helped us rescue,
Yeah.
these around 296 Filipinos who were serving on that ship, actually. And it is to our credit that not one person died. I mean,
Yes.
among all of those, although some, I suppose, got ill and we had to take care of them in Rome before they went home.
So this is a cruise ship, like the big cruise ships that we see.
Yes, yes, yes. I think I guess they weren't too careful in its navigation and they hit something on land, which I suppose on a minor scale you could compare to what happened to the Titanic. The ship got ripped and people had to be evacuated. But I think there were some mortalities, but they were not
Not
Filipinos.
Filipinos. Yes, thank you very much for that. Also, um, well, speaking of Italy and how you were able to save those Filipinos, I know that you got knighted by the Italian government. Was it for this one or for your accomplishment in the diplomatic field? You were given the Order of the Star of Italy.
Well, I served for 3 years in Italy, and I guess um, this could be attributed to the kind of work, cooperation that we accomplished during that period. Um, because I think it is important that embassies uh, they're the vital link between the host government and the citizens that we have there, and that one should be in constant dialogue with both groups, right?
Yes, yes,
We are there to defend the interest of the Philippines, but at the same time to sustain the friendship and the economic or cultural ties that we have uh, with the host country. And in this connection, I should mention that we celebrated the 65th year of our diplomatic relations with Italy. And if I can just show you an example of the publication
oh, that's nice.
that we made during that period, and
Mhm.
then, you know, I think this year, if I'm not mistaken, they celebrated 75 years,
Mhm.
and the Italian embassy in Manila has come up also with its own activities and publications. I believe that they had an opera at the Cultural Center of the Philippines, which was sponsored by the Philippine Italian Society in cooperation with the Italian Embassy.
How about your Vatican connections?
Well, you
Especially
must
now,
know.
there's a controversy or a certain a wrinkle in the with the Caritas or something like that.
No, I wouldn't. No, I don't. I don't believe there's anything like that. I should just mention that there are always two embassies in within the peninsula of Italy. One to the country,
Mm-hmm.
to the Republic of Italy, and the other one to the, of course, small but very important,
But
uh, state of the Vatican. So there are two ambassadors. There are always two ambassadors to represent, one to the head of the Catholic Church, which is the
mhm.
Pope, and to the other to the Republic of Italy. So um, our work is different from each other. So generally, the ambassador to the Vatican has to represent the country to the the Pope himself, and on the other hand, to do also liaison with the religious
Yes.
who gravitate towards that to the Vatican.
Okay.
And
Uh,
we are responsible for the 200,000 Filipinos who are in Italy.
yeah, very nice. Thank you for that. Okay. So, what were the highlights other than or also about Italy? What were the highlights of your career as in foreign affairs?
Mm,
Top three. Top three.
well, I think I've touched on some of them. If you wish, we can move on to the other countries that I mentioned.
Okay. Yes.
But I think South Africa is also a very interesting country. Moreover,
Where in South
there-
Africa? Okay.
well, South Africa is the only country in the world which has three capitals.
Yeah.
So there's Pretoria,
Mm.
which is the executive capital. Then there is Bloemfontein, which is the judicial capital, and then there's Cape Town, which is the
Yeah.
legislative capital. I resided in Pretoria, but would travel to Cape Town whenever Parliament met in the first 2 or 3 months of the year. So, but in addition, I would also travel to other countries which are also important for us, such as Angola, Mozambique, Swaziland, Botswana, Namibia, and so forth. I had the pleasure of accompanying the granddaughter of Nelson Mandela in
Mm.
the Philippines to receive awards from our Congress when Speaker Joe de Venecia was at the head of House of Representatives. And well, I also accompanied the King of Swaziland
Mm.
to Cebu when he was invited by then Governor Gwen Garcia. So, with one of his wives, because as you know, the King of Swaziland has more than just one wife officially.
Okay.
Um, Angola and Mozambique are interesting for us because they are also Latin societies in Africa, having been under Portugal for almost 300 years, similarly to us.
You ate your way through.
Yeah, and then there's Namibia, which is German influence as
Mm.
well. And then Botswana, which is a state that has run its affairs very well. I mean, it also has diamonds, but it's a very well-run country, Botswana. You know.
Yes, as I was asking you, you ate your way through. So, what were the remarkable dishes or the cuisines that
Well, if you
in your
really
book?
want to try exotic dishes, you can. You can find them all in Africa if you're talking of reptiles, for example, or the game hunting, as you know, is also very
Okay.
popular there. In
Yes.
fact, I think the husband of your cousin, Clara Reyes
Yes.
Lapo,
The
did
yeah,
some game hunting
the part. Uh-huh.
in South Africa, and you're allowed to bring home whatever you you hunt.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
but
not,
about you, your how what did you find very interesting that you had enjoyed as a dish, or enjoyed or not enjoyed?
well, can we proceed first to a general overview, a tour de horizon, shall we say, of the countries that I was assigned to? Because I was also in Latin America, as you remember.
Let's
I
go
was
by
in Mexico and Chile.
baka.
So,
Okay, sige.
uh, in Africa, beef is like very important, right? I mean, many dishes are beef based, because of the game, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. They have this beef jerky there, which is very something that you would like, I think. Plus, ostrich meat is very healthy, isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't ostrich also one of the ingredients that they use more widely in the Philippines now?
Not I'm not widely, but there's no fat. It's just healthy.
Yes.
That's me speaking.
Have
I
you
don't
ever
think
tried
that's fat.
ostrich adobo?
Yes, I did that also. Even the ostrich egg, we made it into
Ah,
something like
okay.
adobo also. It's very tasty, but give me the fat next
Oh,
time.
I see. Okay.
Okay,
How
so
about crocodile? Have you ever?
yeah, yeah, TLC tastes like
Mhm.
chicken.
Although, I mean, to be fair, okay, South Africa has also, I mean, very sophisticated food, especially in places like Johannesburg,
Yes,
Cape Town. I mean, they can give us a run for our money too. So I'm not talking just about exotic meats, but because they also had British, French, and Dutch influences.
lots of
So
Filipinos there.
not so many in South Africa. Probably more than when I was there now.
Uh huh.
But I would think that there would not have been in my time more than 1,000.
Okay. So I think I stopped you there. Now you'd like to proceed maybe to Latin.
Yes, yes. Okay, but of course we skipped Asia because I was also in Myanmar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in Myanmar, you take, I guess, some breaks in the surrounding countries like Thailand or
Yeah.
Vietnam or Cambodia. So you're also able to savor the food of
Is it good? I mean, compared to
Myanmar food.
Thailand, yeah.
Well, I guess Vietnamese is more influenced by China, and
Yes.
I guess you could say that Myanmar or Burmese food has influences from India,
Mm-hmm.
not to mention its own, native food, and also somewhat British because of their colonial past.
Okay.
Now, okay, if we have done Asia,
We've traveled to Asia.
Africa, Latin America.
Okay.
You know the art form jazz, okay? They say in jazz, what makes it unique is that the Africans who invented jazz were always looking for the notes that would correspond to
The
what
beat.
they knew from Africa. So that's why jazz has these in between notes that are not Western, but obviously reflect something from Africa, right? Or the rhythms are African. Now,
Okay.
I think as a traveling person, as a Filipino, it's something like jazz. I'm always looking for flavors that I find familiar, right? I mean, so when I was in Latin America, which I think especially Mexico has influenced us a lot, except that we don't have their spices. Okay, but we have dishes that generally our I would say, and this is where I find that having my career has been of use in terms of knowing culture and heritage.
Mhm.
We got our culinary influences more from Spain, I think, directly from the friars and the Spanish bureaucrats who came to the Philippines, but not ironically from Mexico, which is the Spain ruled us through Mexico. We were
Yeah.
part of the viceroyalty of Mexico, but then only one region in the Philippines has spicy food, and that is Bicol. And they say that is because the galleons passed through Bicol,
Mhm.
and some of them may have either sunk around there, or I don't know. It may be a researcher, a food researcher like Felice, can look into this. But they say the spicy food of Bicol may have been influenced by the galleons. But
Yeah.
otherwise, our food is not really Mexican. It's more Spanish,
Mhm.
if at all.
Okay.
So anyway, when I'm
Um,
in those countries, I look for flavors that remind me of the Philippines because
yeah.
naturally it's what I'm familiar with, right? Like in Chile, they have something which is like our sinigang, you know, for example.
What's it called?
Wait a minute. It will come to me in a little while.
Okay.
But and in Mexico, of course, we've gotten ingredients from them, as you know, no, like sayote, for example, or singkamas.
Fruits, achuete.
Yes,
Um,
but we use them differently for our own taste and purposes, right?
mhm.
I mean, our tortilla, for example, is different from that of Mexico or even from Spain. I mean, they use potatoes more in the Spanish tortilla than we do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, as I'd always say they had the spices, but we had the vinegar. A lot
Yeah,
of different kinds of vinegar.
I have read that adobo, first of all, was a pre-Hispanic dish. It's just that when the Spanish came and then they tasted it, they said it's like their adobo, and that's how the name came about. And on the other hand, it's supposed because of the vinegar, right? And it's the capacity, the ability of this food to survive a galleon trip across the Pacific, which would be something like 3 to 4 months. Adobo was actually eaten on the galleon, is
Mm-hmm.
what I've read. You know, so
Filipino adobo.
yes, but if you the Spanish would not recognize the flavor of adobo that we have because they don't use soy sauce, I think, in the same way that we do. And I don't know, you are the expert. You should
Yeah.
tell us
So it,
whether, I mean, what have the Spanish friends that you have said about our adobo, for
it's
example?
different. They say it's different.
Yeah.
So and they're not used to cooking with vinegar. Vinegar would be more like a seasoning or a condiment. So cooking with vinegar is different. So I said it's because we are also in a tropical climate, and it helps preserve the food.
And I was so glad when there was a food festival that Margarita Flores also participated in under the sponsorship of the then Department of Tourism,
Mhm.
because the Spanish who came, among them Elena Arzac, whose
Yeah.
father, is a famous chef in Spain, I was recently in San Sebastian, where the Sac restaurant is. They commented that our ensaymada
Hmm.
is much better than theirs.
Of course. Yes.
So
Yes.
we have developed, the ensaymada to become something that is our own, right? And the
I,
interesting thing is that I think they say ensaymada actually came from the Arabs, who were in Spain
okay.
for 800 years. So from the Arabs, it went to Spain to the Philippines.
Through the
So they have
Moors, I
these
guess. Huh?
cultural permutations that are very interesting.
The
And
Moorish.
even their paella, for example, is different from ours, right?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Because
But,
I think we cook our rice first and then we mix it with the ingredients. But what they
mhm.
do, if I'm not mistaken, is that they, well, put the rice together with the various ingredients
Yeah.
in the paellera.
Yeah.
And
Well,
actually, I've also read somewhere that before the war in the Philippines, paella was not considered a dish for the elite. It was supposed to be the scraps. That's why you have little pieces here and there. It's only later that it became a somewhat snobby or snooty dish. Please tell us about it, because I think as a specialist chef yourself, you should know a lot about this history.
it's all about the rice. The the rice of Spain, which we do not yet have, but now we have developed certain kinds of rice or grains in the Philippines that can be just like arborio or the rice of Spain, bolo or something like that. I forgot. So expensive here, I cannot afford it. But anyway,
By
um,
the way, I should also mention I found it so interesting in Italy that they
yeah.
also have rice and that they have the water buffalo. That's why they have mozzarella. I mean,
Oh
they
yes.
get it from the water buffalo, which is
Mhm.
our calabaw.
Alabao. Yeah.
So I believe there's an Italian who is developing or has developed mozzarella
What
somewhere
was
in
the most
northern Philippines.
What's the most decadent dish you ever ate in Italy?
Well, I can't say decadent, but I would say that certainly Milan or Venice have very good cuisine.
Like,
Um,
come on, get me hungry.
as you know, Venice has the carnival, right? So I
Yes,
think this is when uh, I guess the ancient families who live in palazzos, bring out their recipes. Because as you know, Carnival is the Tuesday before Ash Wednesday.
yes, yeah,
So they have to, bring out their best dishes before they go into the fasting, the 40-day
yeah. Fat,
fast of
Fat
Lent.
Tuesday.
So, and then Milan, it's like, you could say it's like the New York of Italy.
Mm-hmm.
So there, again, you have all kinds of, nouvelle cuisine that they've developed.
Mm-hmm.
And I do appreciate, for example, in Italy, their slow food movement, you know.
Oh, yes. We
Uh,
interviewed Chit Juan, Pasita Juan, who's the representative of slow food in the Philippines, of Italy.
yeah. And I have also heard that some Filipinos have actually gone into planting, because I mean, Italians need all of these spices.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that's one way to make extra money.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's now we're traveling now to Latin America, you said?
Yes.
Mhm.
We're going back and forth.
Yeah, well, that's fine. It's like a buffet.
Yes. Well, one time there was a country where the ladies group decided to have a smorgasbord of all the dishes of the countries that are represented there. But I think if you went through all of those dishes, you'd get indigestion because sometimes it's much better to stick to a certain, order in cuisine, right? I mean, you can't
Mm,
just mix flavors and hope that it will work out in the end,
mm. I still want to hear one dish that you will never forget, like in Italy.
Um, yeah, I think you're putting me on the spot because I can't name one exact dish that, blew me away. Uh, I think every place is somehow something special, right?
Like the risotto,
Because
I would think, wow, I would love to eat risotto there. Not so, of course,
risotto.
pasta. Yeah.
Hmm. I see. Okay. Um, I don't know. I guess I'm somewhat eccentric because even in my last visit to France,
Mm.
I made sure I ate in a Vietnamese restaurant because
Hmm.
because of the French connection.
Yes.
The Vietnamese are also very much entrenched in Paris. And for example, the rice tafel is something that you can eat in Amsterdam, because it's something that was developed by the Dutch during
Mm-hmm.
their colonial stay in Indonesia,
Okay. Let me ask you.
or
But
curry the curry of India is
yeah.
also very popular in London, right?
Oh yes, yes. Do you cook?
It's something I'm trying to do.
Okay. What's the first thing that you tried to cook?
Well, I was with my sister-in-law in Spain, right? Sister-in-law's family, and we tried our hand in at tortilla. You start with tortilla, which they eat quite regularly.
Mm-hmm.
But then, they get fresh fish because her husband is also an amateur fisher. He does fishing regularly, so he brings home loads and loads of fresh fish from the Bay of Biscay,
Yeah.
nearby. So they always have something fresh in the fridge. And I think that is the secret, since you're asking about dishes that would blow you away. I think the important thing is to have fresh ingredients, right? And
Yes.
to eat locally. In other words, um, because now we have this in the modern era, we can get foods that are out of season. I mean, they're imported from somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
but it's best to get things that are immediately in the region because they're fresher and are more typical. They reflect I guess, the personality and the character of that place.
Mm-hmm.
You
Oh,
know,
by the way, Anton has joined, but just audio only as you requested. So, Anton,
I thought you were going to show some pictures.
yes, we are.
Really?
I have one more question. Are
Yeah.
you already travel weary, or will that ever leave you? Your lust for your wanderlust?
Well, so far not, but and I have known many people in my profession who have sworn they won't travel again because it's so inconvenient, right? I mean, actually, it's really quite surprising, especially after the pandemic. The
Mm-hmm.
number of people who are in airports and airplanes, crowding the subways and the main avenues, Um, I guess when we are a bit older, we seek a little bit more comfort. So maybe I will space my travel a little bit more.
Yeah. All right. Before the photos, and I know one of the book is also in the photo. Tell us a bit about the book, the latest book that you have written, The Memory in Time.
Well, I think in addition to, may I speak about A Memory of Time? Because that
Yeah.
is a collection of essays which span, I guess, the latter part of my diplomatic career, which is, I guess, around 2014. But I continued to write for other publications like the Philippines Daily Inquirer and Positively Filipino, which is the biggest digital magazine here based in San Francisco, California.
Mhm.
And so I did a collection of essays, and these were published by New Day, which is a Philippine publisher. And This was launched first in 2019, just before the pandemic. I was still in Manila at the time. And I think it wasn't able to be circulated as easily because of the pandemic, if you must remember, right? Although it's available through Amazon and New Day Publishers and in bookstores like Solidaridad, it didn't really gain wide currency until later, because in 2020 it was nominated as one of the selections in what's known as the Filipino Reader's Choice Award.
Mm, congratulations. Yeah, it's good.
And I believe it got quite a number of votes, if I'm not mistaken, ranking first among the top three for nonfiction. And this will be decided on by a committee and announced in Baguio at the book fair first week of December next year.
Oh,
So that's, I think, a memory of time, which you said you would show, or at least
yes,
hear.
but that is, yes. All right.
But then, in addition, I also wrote another book, which is fiction, actually. And this one is called Nuestro, whoops, there's a big glare, Nuestro Perdido Eden.
Okay, the
It's a
danger.
novella on Manila, which is really on Intramuros. And even though the title is Spanish, it's really in English. And this
What's
was
the meaning,
published by the Ateneo de Naga Press.
what's the meaning of that? Nuestro,
Our Lost Paradise,
our
from
lost people.
Rizal's poem, Nuestro Perdido Den,
Okay,
Our Lost Paradise.
all right.
So it's sort of an examination of what Manila was in the past
Mm-hmm.
and what it could be in the future still.
All right. So now
Okay.
we can go to the
But
slides.
may I just proceed again, if you
Oh,
don't mind? I think because of all the time that the pandemic has given us, I guess I also used it to write other things. So, oh, by the way, when I was based in Mexico, I wrote something which is in Spanish. It's about the Philippine Revolution because this coincided with the 1998 centennial of the Philippine Revolution, right?
uh-huh.
But this one I wrote in Spanish and I launched it in Santiago de Chile, you know.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot of history research.
But this one is more to honor my father, my siblings, and I. For his 100th anniversary, wrote this book in tribute to him,
Mm-hmm.
Virgilio Reyes Sr., because he was born in July 1922, and we celebrated this 100th anniversary. He passed away when he was only 55. But we
Wow.
celebrated his 100th anniversary exactly. I mean, 100 years later. So he was a journalist, so and press secretary to Diosdado Macapagal.
Ah,
So
that's where you got your
I may
writing
give you
from.
a copy of this when I see you next time.
All right. Okay. For all
Okay.
you know, we might become relatives. Who knows?
I think we may be relatives.
I don't know. Maybe.
Because because of my interest in genealogy and all that, I've found relatives along the way, such as Bernardita Reyes Churchill, the historian. And then my grandmother is a Prudente, which makes us
We
relatives to
believe.
Feliz Prudente Santa Maria.
All right. We'll request Anton for the photos. Anton, are you there?
By the way, I wish to thank Anton, who's
Yeah.
worked quite hard, behind the scenes with his team,
Mm.
and I'm very grateful and appreciative to him. Also for the awesome planet. Now that you've tuned me into it, I mean to follow that. This picture, which we are showing on the screen, is very interesting. Since these are the ants, the Calixto ants of my grandmother, Esther Temponco. Her grandmother was Ines Calixto, married to my great grandfather Felipe Temponco.
Okay. A
And
little trivia
it
that
was a fashion
yeah, that's it.
among Manilans of that day to dress up in the way they thought peasants dressed up. So they would put on these costumes and pretend that they were farm women. And I think, although it was made in a studio, such a picture would have been. But I'm just amazed at the sharpness of the images, don't you think?
Yeah. So what's with the umbrellas?
I think those were just ornaments, the way that Japanese geishas carry umbrellas.
Hmm. Now I was thinking baka those umbrellas then were just they just started to become popular or
Oh
they
no,
were
I think umbrellas have always been part of the because of the heat. I mean, they're
yeah.
more like parasols, against the sun,
And
not
then
really against rain. Well, of course, it rains a lot in the Philippines too.
yeah, and then the women were not it was not stylish to smile, right? Ano ba yan? Mona Lisa smile or
No,
something?
because if you must remember, taking photos then was like a cumbersome process. You had to freeze, you had to stay, yeah. So you couldn't hold a smile, I guess, for longer than 5 minutes. So it took some time, and first of all, it was not considered polite to show your teeth. Okay.
Oh.
And then secondly, you had to hold the pose for about 10 minutes, I guess.
Oh my god.
So, smiling would not, be
Okay.
something you'd do. But later on, with Kodak and everything,
All right. Okay.
especially now,
Yeah.
But these are actually my relatives. I mean,
They're pretty.
I'm
They're all
descended from
Lisa.
some of, I mean, they're cousins of my great grandmother, Ines
Okay.
Calixto.
Yeah. Anton, next, please. There. Oh.
Oh, this. When I was in Paris, I had a friend in New York who told me to please look for some sweets, to bring back. And this is a specialist shop, not far from the newly reopened National Library of France. And it's been there, maybe I would think the shop has been there 100 years. So they carry all of these candies and sweets, and it's like a mission for them
It's 9 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
that
Okay.
they preserve. To see different wines, different chocolates, dried fruits, etc.
Okay. Yeah. Anton is behind all the
And
release.
this is a picture of myself as a
Oh.
1-year-old with my mother, Erlinda Alcantara Reyes.
Your mother is Tisay. Mestiza.
I guess you could say so. Well, she has some French and Chinese blood.
Uh-huh. What's the car at the back?
Ah, that's probably a Cadillac. And this house belonged to my ninang Sara Temponco de la Paz and her
Ah,
husband Angel de la Paz. This is where we used to have Christmas reunions. It's located on Banawa and Samat streets near St. Teresa's College in Quezon City.
really? Wala na yan. Wala na.
Yung bahay wala na, pero nandun pa rin ang STC, di ba?
Of course.
Ah.
Yeah. Alma mater. Yeah. All right. Were you the only son, child?
No, no, no. We were five children in the family. My oldest brother Carlos passed away when he was only 30. But then I have two sisters, Cynthia and Georgina, who both went to St. Teresa's like you and who were
Yes.
friends of Clara Lapus.
Uh-huh.
And then myself as number four,
Okay.
and then my younger brother Valentin.
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll have the next photo. Is
This
that
is
you?
me with all of these young children are now like business tycoons. Christian is here. He's the son of my younger brother, Val, and then his sister, Olivia, here um, is a doctor. So this is ages ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Next.
And this is me with my son in New York.
Mhm.
Well, he's a lawyer now, and he has his own baby daughter of 2 years. So I'm wearing the New York hat, Yankees.
Okay, we beat you. The Astros beat you. Sorry.
And then, okay, this is a New Year's party at our apartment in New York. My wife Marie, and this is my classmate Edgar Bonus
Mhm.
with his then wife Ermi.
What does Marie do?
She retired from Citibank. In
Mhm.
fact, she's there in Manila right now for a visit.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. You're in New York right now, right? You are in New
Yes,
York.
I am. And this is our place in New York
Mm-hmm.
where you're interviewing me, and this is my
Yeah.
son with his daughter, Theodora.
Hello. Yes. Okay. Lolo ka na pala. All right.
Yeah, very late. My classmates, some of them already have probably almost great grandchildren.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Next.
This is me at my birthday party with Kevin McAnini, who's an American poet laureate from
Mm-hmm.
Long Island.
Yeah. Where was this? This is New York.
This is in an Ecuadorian restaurant. You
Uh-huh.
know, as you
Okay.
see, we always look for things that are similar or familiar to
All
us.
right. Yeah. Okay.
With my lemon shirt.
Yeah. And your birthday cake, I think.
There are other people too, but they're not in this picture.
Okay. All right. Next.
This is my grandmother on my father's side,
That's
Pat
you?
Prudente Reyes. No?
Yes.
She had 8 children. My father was probably the third. You know.
Is that you?
No, no, that's my auntie who's now Erlinda Reyes Paez.
Ah,
She's a
okay.
teacher at Saint Scholastica, and she must be in her 80s by now.
All right. Wow. Okay.
Myself, this is a recent picture from Paris.
Uh-huh. All right.
Oh my goodness, all the details that
Huh?
I think I must have taken this picture because the lady reminded me as if she was wearing a terno. But I think this is a book from the Bibliothèque Nationale de Paris. It's a wonderful place, they restored it and
Uh-huh.
it's quite something to look at.
Okay. Next. Any more? What's that?
This is just a subway, but they bothered to put merci or thank you on, where you should throw your cigarette butts, I guess. This is the metro in Paris, right?
Uh-huh. Oh, yes, yes. With lots of art on the sides, right?
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay.
This is really fantastic. This is in Trier, Germany, and this gate to the city, it must be around 2,000 years old. Trier is also the place where Karl Marx, was born and studied. But this is amazing that this building has survived for.
That's just the facade, or
No,
that's
this
it.
is
That's
this
it.
is the gate, and normally there would have been walls, attached to the
Yes.
gate,
No
which no
more walls.
longer exist. But because this was converted into a church, it survived. Otherwise they might have torn it down. But
Uh-huh.
because they used it as a church, they managed to. And in that very city, Trier, there's also the basilica, which was an old Roman building that they converted also into a church, which also survived 2,000 years, which is amazing. I mean, this is so far from the Colosseum. This is like thousands of kilometers away, but this looks as if it could fit into Rome, right?
Mm, the architecture, yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. More.
This is, I think, from the same series that you saw earlier.
I like this, and I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Um, was there a particular studio that had this backdrop?
The Sun Studio here, and then where my grandmother, Sun Studio. That's probably one
Okay.
of the old, and this is from 1915, right? In the
Wow.
middle of the First World War.
Okay.
You know, Philippines was not affected by that war directly, so people were carrying on. But then, if you were able, but I think you were not able to reproduce my other grandmother's portrait. It was taken in Veluzar Studio, which still exists in Manila up to now. Veluzar, VLUZAR.
Ah, Luzar.
I
Oh,
was told it
talaga?
still exists
Wow.
up to now.
Okay. I love that. I love that backdrop. Okay. So you have to tell us now more about uh you've been encountering people, places, events, food, cultures, languages, if, history, and they're all in the book.
Well, not all of them. Some of them are in the
Or
book.
35 years worth. 35
No,
years
no,
worth.
no, no. Let me explain. This is not on the 35 years, right? This is just the end part of my assignment, and then the continuing life that I had after. So, in other words,
Mm,
I still have to write my real memoir, right? Which
okay.
is the 35 years before that. I would say this only covers about five years, and then
Mm,
the essays deal with what was the reality after I finished my career in 2014. Right.
all right. Maybe before we forget, we have to let the audience know again that it's available in La Solidaridad, Amazon,
Amazon, yes. New Day Publishing,
New Day. Where's New Day? Where's their store?
and I
It's
think
online.
Lazada has it, I think.
Okay.
Lazada, yeah.
Yeah. All
Or
right.
New Day is connected to the Episcopalian Church, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They're on, I think, Eulogio Rodriguez Avenue. And I wish to thank them because they're the ones who nominated my book for this award,
Mm.
which might be given if I'm favored in January in
Okay.
Baguio.
I'm not sure if Anton can join us, or maybe even Anton, can you even say hello? Because the internet, well, now we found out the problem. But when Anton and I were looking at the photos, wow, and dami. Well, we thought they would all be in your book.
No, those are photos that are more from my recent trip to Paris. And
Uh-huh.
because you requested me, I was doing some Googling and I integrated some
Yeah.
of the old church pictures into the newer ones during the trip, right?
Okay, so we've even extended from all the stories that
Yeah,
you said. But
thank you.
before we end, Anton would always ask, how would you be able to inspire or motivate the Gen X and even the millennials about travel? What should they bring along? What should they leave? What should they take home?
Well, first of all, I don't think I have any business inspiring the millennials because they're the most experienced people when it comes to travel. But I would say, and also based on my last trip, travel very lightly, you know, because it's the best way to do so. You won't be encumbered. You know, your memories are the most important thing, and carry a notebook if you can, or use your iPhone to take pictures, um, write down your memories. I think it's very important, for you to pass on. I mean, exactly what Anton and you are doing, which is documenting, getting people to speak about their experiences.
Yes.
Because I think it's very important for us Filipinos. There are 10 million of us abroad, out of a population of 110. It's important because we are the world's nomads now. Okay.
Really? Yeah,
So I think we have a very important role in the world, and we have something important to contribute.
that's a new insight that I am hearing from you. Um, I never realized that. Yeah. But other than that, something about diplomacy. I think diplomacy, the skills of being an ambassador is not easy to do. You have to know how to do your words and how to pose your comments correctly, right? And because there's so much freedom of speech now, sometimes it gets corrupted. Diplomacy gets corrupted. And do you agree or not?
Well, not only in diplomacy, but in the world in general. I think social media have given us a lot of good things, but I think they're also responsible for fake news, for lies that are spread through media, and I think that we have to know how to restrain ourselves in this area because the consequences could be terrible. I
Hmm.
mean, I think that truth is still something that is very important to this day, and we must do our best to defend it.
Okay. Last words for the audience.
Well, I think that the world right now is in turmoil. We have climate change, we have even the threat of a nuclear war, we have quite a number of things that the younger generation will have to encounter and face and try to solve. So, despite everything, we still have to pull together, and use our resources to be able to emerge with a better world after this, I think. Well, I live in New York. I worked in the United Nations within that framework for about 8 years. The world has not turned out to be what we wanted it to be after the fall of the Berlin Wall and what we thought was what someone said the end of history. But now we're faced with more, bigger, I guess, and even more challenging and daunting tasks.
Well, so how do we face that in a
If I
more
knew the solution, I might be the Secretary General of the UN. So
oh, why
I
not?
think I'm far from that. But thank you anyway for having given me this opportunity to talk.
And
Maraming
we're very
salamat
thankful.
sa inyo lahat. At saka ngayon maaari na nating tingnan din yung mga ibang mga interview na nagawa ninyo dati. Uh,
Everyone's awesome story is really awesome. And here in this the awesome planet, Anton's our awesome planet has it's a residence of so many people, places, and interesting inspirations of everybody, including you,
thank
Ambassador
you.
Virgil. And we,
Salamat.
yeah, we wish to be buyers of your book when I get back to Manila, and also to read that, especially about your father. And dig up, please. I might be your relative, and put me in your will. At least for the book, at least for a book.
Maraming
Okay.
salamat.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Bye.
audience.
Bye, Anton. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you can watch the replay of this interview of Ambassador Virgil Reyes, and again travel with him through his posts and all the culinary DNA that he is so well embedded because of Cavite and all the rich legacy that he had. Thank you very much again, and live an awesome life. God is
Thank
good.
you. Bye.
Good night, good morning, goodbye in
Bye.
this awesome planet.